All right, welcome to the show, everybody. We got a show for you. I'm going to try to keep this brief. We have our interview this week with Mixerman. This is episode number 12.
Is it really?
Yep, this is number 12. So if this is your first time here, hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up. The fact that I really don't want to be here right now, but the show's got to go on, so I'm going to be a pro this time.
Yes.
And
just as a heads up, we're having weather issues here, and our electricity has already flickered off once this evening, and it may very well flicker off again.
In which case, so everybody will understand, that noise, that's the power flickering. It's causing my power amp to freak out and make that little clicky noise.
Oh, is that what that noise is?
Yep.
Okay.
And if the power actually dies, the recorder will stop and the whole thing will happen on camera audio only.
Yes.
So if the thing goes dark for a second and we're still talking, well...
We have a flashlight that will provide quite a bit of light. But
not enough. But.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's who we are. So who the bleep are you? So that we can go, let's just get this show on the road.
I would be your long-suffering wife.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm the maniac who started a record label in 2016.
Yes.
I'm Donald W. Moore. I started Get Off My Lawn Records, and I front the Jazz Destroyers.
Yes.
And for the first time, I feel the need to point that out. The Jazz Destroyers is a band, because is a band, and there's a YouTube channel, and there'll be a link. There'll be a card right here to go check that out. You can put it on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on your computer, you can open 2 browser windows and listen to the Jazz Destroyers while listening to this podcast.
It's good to listen to while you're cleaning your house.
Yeah, it is. It's good to listen to all the time. But this channel is actually getting a considerably more view time than the Jazz Destroyers right now. So please go check it out. You know, when you're done with this podcast, have a listen to the tunes, because that's why I do this, is to let everybody know what's going on with the music. So I appreciate all the support you guys have given me. This has been really tremendous. We've had 15,000 watch minutes in the last 28 days.
Wow.
What is it, 30 subscribers in the last days? In the last 28?
Something like that.
And I think just shy of 3,000 views. So you guys are really awesome and supportive, and we do this specifically for you.
And we thank you.
Yes. So that's who the bleep we are. So what's our next section?
Oh, that would be... Do you give a bleep?
Do you give a bleep? So what I do is I have you compile 5 news stories.
Yes.
That I may or may not give a bleep about. Usually I don't give a bleep.
No.
And we try to keep the community. We try to keep our community, right? We're community leaders, so we try to keep everybody informed.
Yes.
Because in a world where fake news and social media rules everything, like, we want to make sure that you guys actually know some facts.
And I actually have a story about that this week.
Oh, great! So, so what's our first one?
First one would be Alan Thicke.
Yep, my heart goes out to Robin.
My heart goes out to his son Carter.
Yeah, Carter.
Because, you know, Alan Thicke died this week at age 69 of a heart attack while he was playing hockey with his 19-year-old son Carter.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. So,
let's
so for the context, who's Alan Thicke?
Alan Thicke would be the actor that played the dad on Growing Pains.
Yep, that's how I know him the best.
Every child of the 80s knows.
Yep, because Kirk Cameron got his start there,
Uh-huh.
and Leonardo DiCaprio got his start there.
Yes.
So...
And I think possibly Brad Pitt.
No, Johnny Depp, I think, did a couple episodes.
No, I thought Brad Pitt was on one of those shows back then.
Well, either way, it was a pretty good show.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some... You know what I'll do? I'll try to track an episode down and put it right here.
Okay.
So...
Well, what I did not know was that he was also a songwriter.
Of course he was.
And he wrote the themes for Different Strokes and The Facts of Life, as well as numerous game shows.
Wasn't he a game show host at some point?
I know he's a late-night talk show host.
He's Canada.
He is Canada.
He is Canada incarnate.
Yes.
We had an episode, was it number 5? We did an episode with Canadians.
Yes.
Did an Ask a Canadian episode. That's a lot of fun if you're not familiar with the culture of Canada. It's a pretty good primer. So yeah, I give a bleep, kinda.
I thought it was rather amusing that his ex-wife said that he went out the way any good Canadian should, playing hockey with his son.
It's true. We should all go out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. What's next?
All right. Next one, Harry Morgan.
Who? Oh.
You would know him as best as Colonel Sherman Potter on MASH.
That's not actually how I know him best. But yes, he was Sherman Potter.
But he was also Officer Bill Gannon on Dragnet.
Yep.
He died this week in Los Angeles.
And actually, I knew him as, was it Commissioner Gannon? So the way I knew his work the best was Dragnet, the film, the 80s remake of the TV show.
Okay.
Which is a lot of fun. It's got Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd. And, just a really tremendous... The whole cast is really good. It's very overlooked because it's a remake and it's kind of been lost to history, but it's a lot of fun. You should check that one out. And yeah, he had that look. He was the television police officer up until like NYPD Blue and Jimmy Smits really kind of took over. So yeah, I give a bleep.
Yep.
Do you give a bleep?
I definitely give a bleep.
You have any thoughts?
He was 96.
Way to go.
So, go him.
That's pretty good.
Go him.
Beat the average. You know, the average is dropping for the first time. The average life expectancy for Americans has dropped.
Yes. 69 is apparently the new 27.
Yeah.
So.
All right, what's next?
Another 96-year-old. Henry J. Heimlich, the Cincinnati surgeon whose bear hug maneuver has been credited with saving the lives of tens of thousands of choking victims.
Are you sure he died this week?
He died today.
Today?
Today.
So we film this on Saturday, we upload on Sunday. And then this will come out as an individual clip on Monday.
Yes.
So just so everybody's got context.
Yes, so he died.
I could have swore he was in the news for having died 6 months back.
Nope. December 17th.
No, you know what it was? It was that he was living in a nursing home. And he performed the Heimlich maneuver in the nursing home and saved somebody who was choking on a piece of hamburger. Interestingly enough, it was the first time he personally had ever performed the Heimlich maneuver.
Was it really?
It really was. Because he developed it as he was a doctor, right?
Yeah, he was a surgeon.
He was a surgeon, so he never had to perform it. He just had developed the theory. And yeah, that was the first time. So he got to perform it and save a life before he went. So I give a bleep. Do you give a bleep?
I do give a bleep.
Do you have any thoughts?
I was interested to know that he also developed a valve for
Look at the camera.
He developed a valve for chest drainage that was widely used during field surgery in the Vietnam War and in emergency facilities. So that I found was interesting. It wasn't just this one maneuver.
Right. I mean, the thing about it is most scientists, they do more than one thing their whole life. You know, Einstein did a whole lot of things, but it was, he was working towards that grand unified theory of everything, but he's very famous for the relativity formula, all that. They all do a lot of good things. So I give a bleep. You give a bleep?
I give a bleep.
All right, what's next?
Dylan Roof has been convicted of killing 9 black worshippers in South Carolina.
Yep.
It took the 12 jurors just over 2 hours to convict the 22-year-old on all 33 counts he faced, including federal hate crimes.
How old?
He was 22.
22.
Well, he was 22 now. He was 21 when the...
He was 21 when it happened?
Because it happened last
Federal
year.
hate crime?
Federal hate crime.
Now
he was also found guilty of obstructing the exercise of religion for those he shot.
Yeah. All those are appropriate.
Yep. He'll find out next month if he gets the death penalty.
Yeah. The Dylan Roof thing, I feel the need to personally condemn it. Because there's a pretty valid criticism of the hypocrisy that goes on in this country. What that kid did was a form of terrorism.
Yes.
And
he walked into a church, they accepted him in that church, and then he shot everybody.
Yep, and it was like during choir practice or something.
Yeah, it was like Bible study maybe, I don't know. But yeah,
it was... And I don't know who led that kid to hate so very, very much. But that's why hatred is so dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though you may hate and you think there's nothing wrong with it and you say hateful things about people, there's a small subset that are so wackadoo that they go off and they cause violence. And so if you're spreading your hate and it spreads to them, and then they act on that hate in a way you might not personally,
Right.
you still bear some responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
At least, karmically. There it is again. So yeah, we should absolutely take a minute and condemn the actions of this terrorist and call it that. And call for everybody. If you know people that are so extremely racist, you can't go that. You can't. That's why I say love everybody, love each other, because it takes a lot of it. It's really hard to love each other. It takes more energy, but it doesn't lead to this.
Well, at the same time, child psychologists have discovered that you aren't born to hate other people.
Right. It's learned behavior.
This is taught behavior.
Yep.
This is, this is a product of your environment. This is nurture, not nature.
Right. So the question is, I'm sure then to some extent the parents may be open to some civil litigation if the families want to pursue that. But then the real hard part is I'm only for the death penalty in one very specific instance, and this kid ain't it. It would be cheaper to just lock him up forever. Because there's a whole automatic appeals process.
He's 22. I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah, it is. The appeals process is so much more expensive.
Even if he could possibly live until he's 80? Are you sure it would really be cheaper at that point to lock him up forever?
Well, let's fact check that in the comments.
Okay.
Let's have that discussion in the comments. Let's keep it civil.
Okay.
Let's keep it appropriate, but let's figure that out in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts on that one.
Because,
But I'm really only for the death penalty in one very specific case, which is political corruption. Political corruption should absolutely carry the death penalty. It's a travesty that doesn't. It would keep all of these criminals out. We got a lot of them in politics right now.
Yeah.
So.
See, personally, I think death would be almost too good for him.
Right, and in many ways, I don't give a bleep about Dylan Roof, right?
Yeah.
But I give a bleep about the families. I give a bleep about that community. I give a bleep about that city. But I don't give a bleep about that kid. And so they're going to figure it out, and what's going to happen is what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, at this point I'm fairly certain he's just a lost cause, and that's sad.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yep. All right, what's next?
German legislators are considering whether to institute a policy that if Facebook does not delete a fake news story or hate speech within 24 hours, the social network could expect a fine of 500,000 euros, which ends up being $522,575 per item.
I give a strong bleep. I give a serious bleep. In fact, this is my one major criticism of modern German government. After World War II, they decided to curtail some free speech.
Sure.
And the free speech they decided to curtail was related to the National Socialist Party, the Nazis. And while I understand and respect the intent of that, this is too far. This is censorship beyond reasonable. I think it's important to flag fake news, but we have a right to our fake news. We really do.
Sure, and they're not saying that Facebook can't have it. They're saying that Facebook needs to take it down within 24 hours.
That's why they're saying they can't. But they're saying they can't have it. It's not appropriate to. It's not appropriate.
Really not. Fake news is not appropriate. I mean,
fake news is not appropriate, and the censorship, this government level of censorship. Nope. Sorry.
The 20 highest performing fake news stories outperformed the 20 most read legitimate stories.
I still don't
So-
care. I don't give a bleep. This is a free speech issue. People have a right to their ignorance. They have a right to their fake news. I
But
don't.
they shouldn't have that. Should they have that? Should they have that right at the expense of everybody else?
In what way? How is it? At what expense?
There is a lot of accusations that fake news brought about the current situation in this country.
There's that. There's also the fake news with the Pizzagate thing
Yeah.
that went on. I think that the writer of the fake news,
Uh-huh.
the website that publishes the fake news,
Mhm.
that bears financial responsibility for this. They carry the burden of this.
Yeah,
But
but
it's
when
not
it
on-
affects the rest of the country, shouldn't there be some
No.
limit on that? That
Nope.
they have to put something in there that says that this is a fake news story.
No,
something
listen,
to
I'm
identify
all for the identification of it.
Mm-hmm.
We all we all should know what we're reading is false or like
Right.
Like-
The onion is obvious.
the Onion probably needs a badge because the Onion gets mistaken quite a bit.
Sure.
And there's a couple of those satire websites that get mistaken quite a bit. And in many ways, Charlie Hebdo was mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So a badge is probably appropriate. The
Mm-hmm.
complete removal, the blocking of these articles is inappropriate. So somewhere between what we have now, which is this wild west of propaganda, for lack of a better word, and this government censorship that Germany's proposing is...
Well, they're afraid it's going to affect their elections next year. And that's why they're proposing it now.
Yeah, I'm sure Merkel's really afraid that she's not going to be reelected. By the way, Angela Merkel is not the saint that some people believe.
I've never claimed that she was.
Well, what I'm saying is that, yeah, maybe it will affect their elections, and maybe for the better, because she's no saint. So...
But, Germany has the crackdown on some free speech.
Yeah, Germany...
Because
I can't-
World War II nearly destroyed their country.
Well, Russia nearly destroyed their country.
No, they did a pretty good job on their own before anybody invaded them.
It's true, but the way I look at it on this one is keep it out, not for America. There's not a thing I can do about Germany and what Germany's going to do,
Sure.
but in America, I find it abhorrent. I find it repulsive.
No, Facebook has already said that they're looking into making sure that all fake news stories are marked as such.
Right, but I have no faith in Facebook.
Sure, nobody does at this point.
I have no faith that Facebook is going to do a good job of that, because there's that one image of this. It's a goose, right? It's a black goose, and behind it is a fire, so it looks like the goose's head is on fire. Right? The goose isn't actually on fire. It's an optical illusion from the camera, and Facebook puts a big censor thing over it saying this image may not be appropriate. You got to actually click it and acknowledge that to see it. And so yeah, I have no faith that Facebook will do a good job of this, and I don't want some algorithm running censorship.
Right.
Censorship of all forms
No,
is bad.
Part of Germany's legislation was that it wouldn't be an algorithm. Facebook would have to employ people in an office in Germany that would spend 24 hours a day going through this stuff and making sure.
Well, I guess Germany's about to lose Facebook. I'm sure they'll cease operations long before they do that. That's unreasonable. They're demanding that Facebook hire people. That's also a level of government intervention I'm not cool with. And I happen to be pretty left, but when we go into this realm of censorship, we run into this thing David Pakman calls it the regressive left. Mm-hmm. There's a fascist side of the left wing that I'm just not down with. And there's a fascist side of the right wing that we're dealing with right now. Mm-hmm. But the fascist side of the left wing is not saintly in any way.
No.
Everybody's just doing their best, but we can't...
Fascism is rarely saintly.
Exactly. we can't go telling other people what to do. We can't go telling companies what the. I'm a media company. I don't want Germany telling me what I can or cannot release.
Sure.
So no. I give a very strong bleep. You give a bleep?
I give a bleep in that.
And that
you know, I can understand Germany's point of view that they don't want what's happening here to happen there because they've already had it happen there and it did not work out well for them in the long run. So, you know, I can understand not wanting to go there again. And I don't blame them for that at all. But, you know, at the same time, it is a way of curtailing free speech to a degree, but if it's flat out fake or a lie to begin with and it's not labeled as such, then really for the public good, it almost should be taken down. You know, if it's labeled, okay. And I'm sure The Onion has absolutely no problem labeling their stuff.
The Onion actually, if you go to the Onion homepage, the word satire appears.
Yeah, and so does it, as does it on the Charlie Hebdo.
Right.
So, you know, most of these, even the New Yorker,
yep,
their satire pieces are clearly labeled as such.
Sometimes but with this internet sharing, it's really hard to decipher. Ultimately, what we should have learned from all of this is that it's everybody's responsibility to question all of it, including the mainstream news. This is my big fear, is that they will give the mainstream news a pass. Mm-hmm. Because they go, oh, well, they're mainstream and they must be right. But that's not true. We get lied to by the mainstream media.
Oh, sure.
We were being lied to by PBS Tonight.
I wasn't watching PBS Tonight.
Yeah, you were. We watched that thing. You were looking at me like, oh my God, as much as I was. The PBS NewsHour...
That wasn't tonight. That was last night.
No, I was on my phone. I was watching it. We were on the couch.
Oh.
PBS NewsHour is propaganda. They're running a bunch of reefer madness type stuff right now because the DEA just made CBD oil a Schedule 1.
Well, you know what? You know why the mainstream news has gone that way, right?
Because
that's what draws ratings. If it's not dramatic, then nobody's going to tune in.
Right, but ultimately, like, when they lie, Fox News gets to continue airing, and they will get a pass. So, no, I'm just against it. All right. What's next? Oh, this is Section 3. Okay. Yep. So, Section 3 traditionally is, what the bleep have you done for the label? What the bleep have you done for the label this week?
Not a damn thing.
Yeah, great. See what I'm dealing with? If anybody wants to get involved, you can get in touch through the Facebook.
I had finals this week.
Yep.
Screw you.
So what I did for the label this week, it's been a pretty light week. I kind of needed a light week. It's been pretty busy.
So you haven't done much either. Okay.
Well, I set up the distribution network for Best of Freeform Fridays 2016.
Okay. And how is that being distributed?
We'll have the download cards like we have here with the Jazz Destroyers, right? You can get one of these. If you see me in person, they're $5.
Or if you see me in person.
Yeah, the Jazz Destroyers Live, though, is available on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify. It's available everywhere, so you can go check out the Jazz Destroyers Live. And please buy a copy. That helps a lot more than the streaming. And so we set that up. We'll have download cards for Best of Freeform Fridays. Mm-hmm. I'm not ready to release it on Bandcamp yet. Okay. We still over in the corner over here, I've got the cover art, which will come out on Saturday. So 6 days from when the full episode runs. We'll release the unboxing of that. Christmas Eve, yeah. And then next week will be our Christmas episode.
Yes.
Which will be a lot of fun. Maybe I'll put a little hat on the guy, right?
Little Santa hat.
Yeah, a little Santa hat or something. Maybe I'll do that. I guess I did the psychedelic art last week. It's just been a weird long week.
Yeah.
I've been gigging for the Jazz Destroyers. Well, gigging. To raise money for the label, basically. Last night, or what day is it? Yeah, so 2 nights ago. I was playing at the Alamo, wearing this getup. So if anybody recognizes me, what's up? It's good to see you. Thanks for coming out. I was playing the ukulele.
Yes.
Not my favorite show, but everybody around me had a good time,
Yes.
and that's really all that matters.
You were playing well.
I didn't feel like it. I had a lot of technical difficulties.
Yes.
I had to play the first hour by myself, and it's really hard to be compelling with a ukulele for an hour. I'm pretty good at it with a guitar, but even that I struggle. I don't like doing solo gigs. I'm much happier when I'm playing with people, and people were late, and it was very, very frustrating. I spent the whole hour watching the door.
You were competing with people taking their picture with stormtroopers in front of a beach backdrop.
Yep.
I don't think that...
Yep. But it helped provide some of the capital for what we need to make CDs of these projects.
Yes.
We're getting ready to set up the the manufacturing. We'll do manufacturing of CDs. But enough of that. Enough of what's going on with this, right? We're going to go to the Mixerman interview.
Yes.
And then afterwards, we'll come back to this, and we'll do our announcements, our goals, and our giveaway. We do a giveaway, so hang around for the Mixerman interview. This Mixerman is a guy who profoundly impacted the way I approach making music, just as Steve Albini did. So I was really, really thrilled that he was able to take the time and hang out with us. And if he's watching, thank you again. Just to let everybody know, he's got 5 books out on Amazon. I own 2 of them. This is the Daily Adventures of Mixerman. This came out right at the heyday. I read this in college when it was still a blog, it was really a forum posting.
Yeah.
And this really covers. It really goes into the details of like how music was made in the traditional way, all the way up until the end, all the way up until the crash. But now things are done very differently. So he wrote a different book called Mixerman and the Billionaire Apparent. This book is great. Quit rubbing on that. You're making noise. So make sure to. I'll leave a link to the Amazon stuff in the description. I do recommend both of these. He also does Zen and the Art of series. So he does Zen and the Art of Mixing, Zen and the Art of Producing, and Zen and the Art of Recording. So for anybody who's interested in doing what I do, which is ultimately recording, those are really super helpful, though I haven't read them. He wrote them kind of after I'd gotten established, right? So I wasn't looking for... by that point, I had read so many books. You'll see them in other episodes where they're up in the closet. Just chill. I've read thousands upon thousands of pages about recording of music. And... but I'm really looking forward to reading those. I will get around to those. Those are on my list. It'll probably be the next thing I read.
Okay.
So yeah, let's have a look at the interview. And thanks for watching. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't. I'm going to try to have Bob Olson next, though probably after the first of the year. We do a lot of interviews, but Bob Olson was the staff engineer at Motown.
Nice.
And he's a mastering engineer now, so that'll be an interesting interview. So welcome. We have Eric Serafin. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep.
Yep. Mixerman, the one and only, joining us today. You had a tremendous impact on me. Really? Because I read this one. I would have read this. You wrote this 2002, right?
Yep.
The Daily Adventures. I would have read this about 2004. I had come across it online. Probably through Gear Sluts, and I was at Berkeley, and I was making records in my dorm room for my friends because I was there to learn arranging and things.
Yep.
And yeah, it totally changed my whole outlook. Part of why I'm a curmudgeon about analog versus digital, because it's what did you call it? Alcihad? was
Al Sahad, yeah.
Al Sahad. I thought that was too funny that you just wouldn't even call it by name.
No, not at that time.
You were a purist.
I wasn't a purist. I at that time I could stay analog and it didn't affect anything. But
Yeah.
uh, it was more about just Digidesign and Pro Tools and what they were doing, and they had those horrible 888 converters, and everybody was convinced that they were great converters, and I'm online going, they're not great converters. I don't know what, by no measure are they great converters. And
Yeah.
they may have been great converters compared to ADATs. I don't know, but which
Yeah.
is what it came out of. But
That's right.
then the HDs came out, and you couldn't find anybody to put up an argument about the 888s at that point. Within 6 months of the HDs, silence on the 888s.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, okay, so now all you guys that were on there claiming that 888s were great converters now have a basis of comparison. But what was really pathetic about it was the HDs were only marginally better. They still weren't even close to the quality of converter you could get at that time for less money. So
Right.
it was all
It was a big marketing ploy back then.
oh yeah, and it was, they had the whole planned obsolescence thing going on, which is what I was accusing them of. You guys could have put in way better converters than this, and you didn't. And you just have to think when that happens that the plan is in another few years we're going to upgrade you again to slightly better converters. So
Right. Because now that I think about it, my Lucid converter here, that's probably about the same era. I'm running a 8824, and that's I've got my Motu stuff, but anything that's really super important to me, I run on the 88. I run through the 8824. But I don't know. You get to play with all the very nice toys. So just so everybody knows, you're Mixerman. You've worked on quite a few records. The one that I think my audience will know the most is that Hillary Duff thing you actually worked on.
oh yeah.
Not though. So why don't you give everybody the highlight? Like, what are the records that maybe would be the most in the, I don't know, in the lexicon, if you will.
I mean, I've had a very diverse career. I started out with the Far Side, Tone Loc, uh, AC Alone, Freedom, not Freedom, Freestyle Fellowship, Grey Boy All Stars,
All right.
Brand New Heavies, and then I started getting into rock when I did Ben Harper's Fight for Your Mind,
That's the one.
followed by Ben Harper's Will to Live and Burn to Shine, and then I started recording for a producer. After a lot of years of mixing, I realized I was really having troubles going from that position into producer's position.
Yeah.
The labels didn't take mixers making that jump seriously for whatever reason. And I wasn't the only frustrated mixer by that.
Really,
And
you think?
I decided, maybe I should do a little recording. So I put myself up for hire for recording and worked with a producer for a lot of years. We did Bare Naked Ladies.
Which Bare Naked Ladies did you do? I must have missed that one on the.
It was in 2003, 2004. I can't
Okay.
remember what the album was called. I could tell you if I see it. They've got a big flag. They're holding a flag.
Gotcha.
Um, and Lifehouse did the second Lifehouse's second recorded Lifehouse's second album, and what else we did? Recorded 9 Days sophomore effort, which was never released.
Huh.
A whole bunch of acts in that era, and then I went and produced Pete Murray's second album in Australia. He was a huge phenom in Australia at the time in 05, 06. And I produced his second album. That went quintuple platinum or something in that country. And
Wow.
Uh, what else? And then I've done, I mixed two Foreigner albums, live album, and an unplugged album.
Yeah.
Those are great because, when you mix most things, you could go, oh, I think this is going to be a hit, but you never know. You mix Foreigner, every song's a hit, already a hit.
And it's already like,
Cold as Ice, and they're great songs. They wrote so many amazing songs. It's incredible. So those were fun projects to mix,
yeah.
and I've produced a bunch of acts out of the South, and over the years, starting in '08, I started coming to Asheville and recording acts, like an act called The Broadcast, great band, rock
Ve-
band.
Very
Uh,
cool. I'll look them up. I'll put a link in the description.
yeah, and then I did worked with Josh Phillips. I recorded an album for him. That guy is amazing. I want to do another album with him. I want to do music with him for sure because he's just brilliant. And well, so is the broadcast. Caitlin's an amazing, amazing singer. And my son was. I was living in LA in '08. My son was what, like 12 or something, but I knew in '08 I wanted to move to Asheville eventually. So, but I wasn't going to go leave LA just then, and I wanted my son to stay in the same school district and all that. So, once he was grown up, we decided to pack it up and move to Asheville. Because for me, I don't have to be in LA anymore. I can be anywhere. People find me, and for me, actually, Asheville's a better situation for a number of reasons.
Well, you have
But
Moog.
what's that?
You have Moog in town.
Well, there's Moog in town, but that's useful when I need to borrow a Moog. That's for sure. But
Big
there's a
system.
lot of musicians here. There's an amazing studio here, Echo Mountain. There's more than one actually. There's Sound Temple.
Hmm.
There's a studio down a little, probably about 30 minutes from me called Sedgwick. They just put in an API in there,
Wow.
and uh, I'm starting to work with. I'm starting to put together things like right now we're me and who I would say is the best guitar player in Asheville, which is actually doing him a disservice because the guy's would be the best guitar player in nearly everywhere. He's amazing, Marcel Anton, and so we're putting together a band, and I'm not going to be in the band. I'm the producer, but we're putting together a show that's going to go through the entire tourist season, a weekly show. We're calling them the Asheville All Stars. All four of the players are amazing, amazing
Oh,
players.
that's a good idea. Yeah, go for the tour because there is a tourist season in Asheville.
Oh, huge tourist season, and the city wants to make something out of music, and I'm talking with the city, uh, and mostly it seems they spend money on advertising. So I'm trying to give them something that they can advertise, specific.
Right.
And so we're putting together this show, and this guy Marcel is so diverse. We can do multiple different kinds of genres. So he could do a different kind of show every week with this band, and it's a big project. And we've got to pull in private funds from investors and funds from hopefully funds, public funds, hopefully endorsement funds, so that we can put on a really high quality, full blown show, not just have like a bunch of guys up there just playing music, whatever. Especially if it's just mountain music. Mountain music's cool, but people want something they can dance to and enjoy, and so we're
Right. It requires a large sound system, lighting. It's going to require
you got to have the right
costuming.
venue. So we've been talking to different venues. So it's very involved. It's pulling things from a lot of different places. If you told me 5 years ago that this is the sort of thing I'd be doing, I would be stunned by that.
Right.
But this is where we're at. Is that you have to generate your own situations now. So. And there's a void here. This does not exist here. So I see an opportunity,
And you're going
and
for it.
I want to make records with these guys, and so that's what we're gonna do.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So just to give, my audience is primarily not musicians. I would love it if musicians watched, and I try to give a lot of advice and things I've learned over the years. But the reality is musicians make really terrible fans because they never buy records. They don't show up to the shows because they're broke and they're too busy playing their own shows. So we try to target everybody. So to back up, so let's walk everybody through just very very quickly the different, like, when you talk about recording versus mixing. I think you're in a unique position to actually talk about what that is and how that's different in a very simple way.
Well, I mean, they're just two different phases of the production, right? So
Right.
you have the production, which is overseen by the producer, who who basically the is the guy who makes it happen. And different producers have different skill sets. I've been doing it a long time, so I've filled a lot of the voids and that others may have. I mean, I know producers that come strictly from being a music fan and really having a deep understanding of history of music and couldn't tell you anything about a lick of music beyond that, but are able to listen to something and say whether it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then there's guys like me who come from a music background who can you can play a chord for me and I can tell you what the color tones are in that chord. I mean, it goes pretty deep. So
Right.
for me, uh, I mostly produce these days, but I also mix, and the mix is the recording is the phase where you actually record what the band is doing, and the mixing is when you put it all together. So if I'm recording a rock band, I'll have a microphone on the kick drum, on the snare drum, on the different tom drums, and I have overhead microphones. So I'll have all these microphones, and they all relate to a channel. And then I blend those channels together electronically to make what's called the mix. And that's a very oversimplified explanation of it, but
No,
that's the basic
that's
process.
about, yeah, that's about how I'd put it for the audience too. And then after the mix, you then have what I did for a while, which is mastering. You take the mix, you send it to the guy. The guy listens to it and goes, "Yep, it's good." Or he goes, "Well, it's a little bright." And if you
Yeah,
have
the mastering guy takes your work and gives it
a little
a little
polish.
love, makes it a little louder,
Yeah.
takes gives it a little EQ,
Little
and
EQ, touch of
brings it to
compression.
the next level. But that person's basically doing processing that we do throughout, but on the entire mix, on the two-track mix, what we call stereo two-track mix.
Right. And so that that's just to give everybody the background, because I don't know that I've ever explained that part. So how did you fall into recording? Did you go to school for it? Did
Yeah, I
you
went to Berklee College of Music.
you too?
Yeah, I went to Rutgers for a year. I studied piano with jazz piano with Kenny Barron,
Okay.
who's amazing uh, Bud Powell-esque type player.
Yeah.
Well known in the straight ahead jazz community. Um, Anybody who listens to straight ahead jazz knows Kenny Barron, and uh, I realized pretty quickly that that was not where my career was going. So, but it was an amazing experience, and I studied with the guy Prof Fielder too, who was the trumpet player who he played in the Chicago Symphony in the 40s and 50s, and then he taught. He was the first guy who was a crossover jazz and classical player, at least on the trumpet. And he taught Wynton Marsalis, who is the most famous person for that crossover.
Yep.
Anyway, not to get bogged down too much in that, I spent a year there. I went to Berkeley. I never actually intended to graduate Berkeley. I just wanted to take a bunch of classes that I wanted to take, and
Learn everything
um,
you can and get out. Yeah.
I took some arranging classes. I realized pretty quick that I was pretty advanced in arranging, certainly beyond the early classes. So I moved on to songwriting. I even took I changed my major to vocals, vocal
Really?
performance for a semester because I wanted to get some vocal lessons, and that was changing my major. That was easiest. It was pretty funny though at my, but I'm no singer. I just wanted, to learn some things. So, but at my final, I had to do a performance in front of like the whole entire vocal staff team, and I really cannot recall any time in my life seeing more horrified faces than when I was doing my. I don't even know what they gave me. Probably a D. Not good. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
I, and I didn't deserve good. That's okay. But it wasn't. I wasn't there for a grade, and I wasn't there under the pretense that I was going to actually be a singer. But I
Right.
learned a lot of good things. Breath control, how to sound your vowels. Some things I knew. Some things I fine tuned. Uh, uh, I had a good teacher who taught me where my voice was sat best and stuff like that. And then the songwriting stuff was really, really, really. You would think that songwriting classes is counterintuitive, and in some ways it is, but I was songwriting, and a lot of people learn to songwrite by mimicking.
Yep.
So, like I would say, okay, today I'm going to write a Phil Collins song, and so you try and write a song that fits him, and you learn a lot from those exercises, and um, so when I was taking these songwriting classes, I was learning a lot of things that I was doing intuitively, but then it defined it. And so as a songwriter, you probably don't need those things defined, but as a producer, it helped me tremendously because now I have all these tools of being able to look at a song and say, okay, something's just not hitting somewhere. What this is not lifting the way it needs. What can we do to fix it? And I have these tools that I'm familiar with that are useful for making strong songs or great songs.
Right.
And I can work with an artist or a band and help them tuck a few things and improve their song, which is, you get a lot more bang out of your buck as a producer by making the song great than you do by making the recording great. The recording's irrelevant if the song's not great. If the listener isn't blown away by the song, no one gives a shit about anything else.
Right.
So, our goal is to get a reaction. We're not going to get 100% of the people to like any given song. We may not even get 10%, but if you get 10%, you're
Yeah.
doing pretty good. So you could still sell millions and millions and millions of copies, or you used to. Now you can get millions and millions of streams, right?
Well, and the funny thing about that, like, that's so you got out of Berkeley, right?
Yeah.
And did you go straight into an internship?
No, when I was at Berkeley, I kind of, I was doing songwriting and MIDI recording and stuff, and I realized that if I wanted to do songwriting, I needed to be part of a studio. So I went and I talked to my buddy who worked at Daddy's Music, and
Right
he says,
across the
"Oh, I
street.
know, yeah, I know a guy who's at this studio, and one thing leads to another. Next thing I know, a few months later, I'm living above a 24-track studio called Dimension Sound Studios, where George Thorogood had done all of his major works,
They're still
Bad to
up
the
there.
Bone,
Yeah.
and it was so I was living above it, so I had full access to it. It was a 70s style room in an 80s era. All the rooms were going live at that point, so it wasn't super busy, and so I just spent a lot of time in that studio just learning and cutting my chops and learning for several years and bringing in bands from Berkeley and starting, as I started to improve, I started to charge for it, and the owner was like, yeah, do whatever you want. It was kind of a hobby that got out of hand for him, and he was happy to have someone in there who was going to try and rebuild the business. But he understood that I needed to learn how to do the shit first, you know what I mean?
Right.
So he gave me a lot of leeway on that. And in 1990, I started to realize that what I was doing was starting to sound as good as the commercial CDs that I was listening to, and that was not the case, not even close to the case for the 2 or 3 years that I was practicing this stuff. And once I started to realize, wait, okay, maybe I got something here, I decided I was going to move to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I packed it up and um, came out to LA. And Peter Dell, who also had worked, cut his chops at Dimension Sound, met with me, and he helped me get my first gig at Capitol Studios.
You actually worked at Capitol.
Yeah, I was what they called setup, which is basically a runner.
Okay.
Was the main part of the gig, but uh, our job was to set up all the sessions. So all the string sessions, the movies would come in. There would be 60 to 100 up to 120 piece orchestras, and so I'd have to string up all the mics and all the music stands and the lights and put a pencil in every stand and have all the headphone runs and have so that they could plug their headphones in. And so basically, when the orchestra walked in and sat down, they could put in their ear thing and they could warm up and they could play, and the engineer could pull up everything and they were
Make it
recording.
happen.
Yeah. So that was probably the most valuable education that I had, because um, miking up an orchestra is completely different from miking up anything else, and there are tried and true methods of it, and so having done strung up probably 20 or 30 sessions in 6 months, maybe more, you learn how to mic up an orchestra. And it's not that I actually have had to mic up an orchestra in my career, but
Knowing
but knowing how it's done is of value. That's for sure.
Is that the Decatree thing, or how many microphones would you use in those big orchestra sessions?
No, it wasn't Decatree. Not in a studio. In a studio, you actually just put a microphone every 2, 3, 4 people, depending on the section or what the engineer wants. But basically, I'd put a U47 between the two violins, and another U47 between another two, and all the way around U67s. I mean, they had so many microphones at Capitol, drawers of microphones, huge drawers.
Yeah.
Can't. Uh, I think they had something like 50 Sony 44s there or something like that.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
it was insane. They had probably 20 47s. I can't even remember at this point, but it was.
And all of these microphones, just so because as we, you and I were both gear guys, but the audience certainly has no idea. Each one of these microphones today would cost you at least $2,000.
Well,
And the
47
Sonys are,
cost way more than that. The Sony 44s, I don't even know what they sell for now, but those
they're
are.
up over 10, aren't they?
I have no idea, but those are ribbon microphones,
Yeah.
and they're very big, and you see them in pictures of all the time. If you see someone like Nat King Cole singing in front of one or whatever, and then but those are definitely pricey microphones now, and the U47s has got to be $5,000 or more at least.
Yeah.
They might be 10 grand at this point. It's crazy how much those vintage microphones. Those all come from the 50s.
Was it all the 50s that came out of? I guess that makes
When
sense.
they were really, really going crazy at Capitol, yeah, that era. That was the era. In fact, the funny thing is, when I was at Capitol, they had the library, which was full of these crates that were sized specifically to hold 2-inch tapes and reels and 12-inch discs. And they decided they were going to redo the whole thing because those cabinets were from the 50s.
Right.
This was 1990, so they were 40 years old. The shelving system in there was 40 years old, but the crates were awesome. So I took everybody took a bunch of crates. I had at one point I had probably 15 of those crates. I'm down to 4 or 5 at this point, but I have I definitely have crates that held tapes, some amazing tapes that
Yeah.
I can assure you.
Please let me know if you ever decide to pare it down anymore.
Yeah, right.
One of those can come live at my house. So you were doing setup for Capitol. Did you ever move up the chain, or did you move out of Capitol somewhere?
No, I got fired in 6 months. Right.
Awesome.
Rondelli fired me, but and it was the best favor he did me. It was horrible. I mean,
The world
I needed
came to an
a
end
job,
that
but
day.
but it also, got me in a. I'm not the personality that can stay at one place and go up the ladder like that. I don't have that kind of patience. So,
Right.
um, I got my next gig was at Hollywood Sound.
Oh yeah.
Basically, I was a setup. No, I wasn't set up. I was an assistant there, but I was also. They knew I had chops, and so they would put me on as an engineer on sessions and stuff. And that's where I met Mike Ross, who was working with the Far Side, and he was complaining uh, about the studio that he was recording their EP at all the time. And so when he said he was going to do the album, I said, why don't you do the album here? And I brought him upstairs to this room that Jesse Hodges had put in. It was basically just a production room. But
Right.
that's all those guys needed. They didn't need a full-fledged studio. They were doing vocals.
You're
So we
doing
set
vocals and you're
so
maybe
there was a
recording.
DAW in there. I'd never used a DAW before, so I learned how to use it, Spectral Sonics. This was,
Oh yeah.
1992.
Yeah.
So Sound Tools was around. Um,
Sound Tools is what became Pro Tools, right?
exactly, that became
Okay.
Pro Tools.
Which is
But
Alcihad, as we mentioned earlier.
yes, which is Al Sahad. But it was pretty unheard of to record an album to
Hard
to a
drive.
DAW at that
Yeah.
time. That's what's so hilarious. I mean, people always when I was calling Pro Tools Alcihad and I was joking about how people who stay in analog are Luddites and all this. A lot of people were convinced that I just didn't know how to use a DAW. To which I say, sorry, but I've been using a DAW 10 years longer than you even thought about using a DAW.
That's true.
So, and that's how I made my determinations of whether I preferred digital over analog at the time. And I figured out pretty quick that analog was a better format, especially for the things that I was doing. Um, at the end of the day, nowadays I do hardly any analog recording. It's just the problem
It's
is 2-inch
expensive.
tapes are kind of like cars. If you don't use them, or or dishwashers, if you don't use them all the time, they break. So
Yep.
what happens is they'll prepare it, they get it all working for you, and then you get, just enough in to the recording before something bites the dust, and you end up going digital anyway. So at some point I just said, this is not worth it for me anymore. I need to just stick with the digital. And these days,
Digital's
no, I probably would I've been considering doing the project I was talking to you earlier with Marcel on analog, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I probably will regret that. So
I just don't have the resources to go into 2-inch tape. Like, just so everybody in the audience knows, how do you know what a reel of 2-inch is going for these days? It's
no,
expensive.
can you even get? I mean,
You can get 2-inch. I think RMGI is
probably
still making it.
$100 at least.
Yeah, I think they're $200 a reel, and that's what, 20 minutes of recording or something.
15, 16 actually, 16 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah, see,
So-
you would know. I wouldn't. So that's just totally that kind of falls outside of what I do, which is what I call sustainable music. We try to keep our costs low, but I still like working analog. So
We're all there, man. Everybody's trying to keep their costs low. The
Yeah.
thing is, if you go analog, I could make an argument that depending on the project, I could keep the cost lower by going analog because
You get it
you're
done
forced
fast.
into working certain ways and the DAW can slow you down if you don't have an extreme discipline to not fix everything. And
Yep.
it's kind of a slippery slope because you fix one thing and then you hear something 2 bars later and you're like, oh, I got to fix that too. And then that just keeps going and going and going and going. And sometimes it's better just to record. If you record analog, it is what it is and you don't have to fix it.
Right, maybe you splice 2 takes together, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's fine. But the thing is, you really need you need great musicians to do that. And, it can be time consuming in its own ways too. So it really depends on the project. But there's projects that analog tape could potentially pay for itself as far as the reels of tape are concerned.
I agree. So I've been working in cassette because it's relatively reliable. Parts are readily available. Like this machine here is a Fostex 250, which I think is one of the early 4-track machines. And then I have in the other room, I have the big 688, the 8-track. I'm looking forward to. I fired it up. I tested it. I got it from a guy on the boards, and thank you again. But it's a beast. It's about as big as my mixing board. It's huge. But what drove me nuts is it doesn't have phantom power. So I got to buy an external box to supply phantom power to my condenser microphones.
No.
And that's okay. But that machine would have been made in like 1992. That would have been the last of home studios trying to be tape.
Yeah, because shortly after that, it was like immediately after that ADAT started coming in the picture.
ADAT, and then really, I guess my perspective is Cakewalk. Cakewalk is really the one that made the home studio thing boom. At least growing up in the 90s in my part of the Northeast, everybody around me who was doing anything on a hobbyist level, they were all using Cakewalk Home Studio. And that's where I cut my teeth for a long, long time. I'm part of that generation. We're all self-taught. There really wasn't a lot of internship opportunities, and as I was coming out of school was when Hit Factory was closing. Like, so you have fewer and fewer.
Wait, in New York, what year was that? That had to be like 05, 06?
Yeah, I left it in the end of 06. God, it's been a decade.
I recorded Guster at Hit Factory. That was really weird studio to me. I mean, first of all, you're in New York, so the studios are on top of each other.
Yep.
Right? That's weird when you come from LA.
Yep.
And then on top of it, every time I needed a microphone for anything, I swear to God, it took half an hour to get the microphone. Like, the guy would leave. I'd be like, where the fuck did the dude go? I just need a fucking microphone. He's like, and come back. Okay, here's a microphone like half an hour later. I'm like, what are you doing?
I'm willing to bet they had a rental
way
house.
on the other, it's on the top of the building. I don't know. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
It's like, what do you have to go down? You have to go up to 56th Street to go get the microphone.
Maybe.
And then if you want to get anything rented, you would rent it. It would take hours and hours for it to get there because of the traffic.
Yep, the traffic, and you can't load. Like LA's got nasty traffic, but at least most buildings that you can get things in and out of them relatively
easy. It does, but you can load up a truck and be there anywhere in LA, maybe not at rush hour, but during the day, in an hour. They could be 10 blocks away from you. It'd take fucking 4 hours.
I know. My poor wife, we had her drive through it. She drove 3 blocks before she was like, all right, that's it. You're driving.
Yeah,
she can't handle it. So yeah, let's talk about these books though, because you've written now what, 5 books?
5 books, yeah.
And I'm a goober. I haven't got. We'll talk about the 3 I don't have after we talk about these 2. So the first one I had mentioned, it's the Daily Adventures of Mixerman.
Yeah.
And you originally posted the whole thing, right? It was originally a blog for you, or you were.
Yeah, it was never even intended to be a book. I just wanted. I was just trying to attract people to this forum that I was asked to run, and if you're going to run a forum, it's good to have people there.
Yep.
So I had like this 2-month window that came up where I had to take a break from work because my wife at the time, currently my ex-wife, was having health issues.
Ooh.
And so I needed to be there at the house, but I didn't have to do anything for her. I just had to be at the house to take care of her.
Yeah.
So I had all this time. I'm like, I had this idea a few months before about an anonymous engineer writing a story about working with a bidding war band, and so I started writing it. And
bidding war bands don't really exist anymore, do they? Or maybe Bieber.
Probably not. No.
Maybe somebody like Bieber.
They bid the other direction now. How low can we go?
Yeah.
bands don't even get signed right now that I know of. I mean, it's really just a dearth for bands. But
It's it's all
that'll
gone
ch-
synth pop. It's all
that'll change.
duos.
And so I started posting it up one chapter a day. Basically, was the rough draft of that book, and
Yep.
um,
I think that's where I think I had found that archived somewhere, and that's where I was reading it. I was enthralled.
I don't think you could have read the whole thing in
No, I
2000.
didn't. I got no, no. Yeah, the you at that point you at that point I had only read up until I don't even think I had met the Penny Pincher character.
No, she's not on the. I have had 60% of that book online, maybe 55%.
Yeah, that the portion that's still up is the portion that I would have read in college, and it really changed my whole thing. And then when I was able to actually get it in book form, I read the rest of it very quickly, and I read the it had been like a year since I had read it, so I reread the whole thing, and it's really good. I recommend it. This is the one where even if you don't have a background in music, the stories are so good and the way you explain things and the way you describe things, I don't think you need to know. I don't think you need to be an aspiring engineer or producer to get something out of this book.
Probably
And
not.
and that's part of what I love about that. And then the one I finished recently is this new one, the Mixerman and the Billionaire Apparent. This is
Hashtag Mixerman and the billionaire.
hashtag Mixerman and the Billionaire Apparent. The Billionaire Heirs. This is
Right, billionaires heirs.
the Billionaire's Heirs. It's easier to read than say. Um, so give the this one. I want everybody to read this one. This one, it requires a little bit of background understanding of like how recordings get made, but if you watch this podcast, you probably at least are just listening to me talk about the stuff a little bit. You're probably at least familiar with it. This would be a good read. This is really about the state of affairs today.
It is, and it's not so much. I don't really touch on any of the much about recording in it because
Well, I just mean like when you talk about your Slate Raven, which I'm thoroughly jealous of.
the yeah. Well, I made the Slate Raven a character in the book because it's
Yeah.
such it's when you. I mean, it's so different now. You walk in the room and that's it. That's the main big piece of gear that's
Just
in
a
the room.
big screen.
So it's just totally different from even 10 years ago. But yeah, we're not. I I hit the recording subject pretty hard in the Daily Adventures of Mixerman. Like, if you want to get a flyover as someone who likes to listen to music over, the process and how tedious it can be, the Daily Adventures of Mixerman goes into that. This one, I talk a lot more about the business, and it's much more of a social commentary on just, and a political commentary on where we're at. Because
Yeah.
if you take a look at the music business, it's really just a microcosm of what
All business.
of the whole thing. And I explain to people sometimes that if recording engineers and studios get the same amount of money today as they did in 1986,
Yeah.
and there's certain aspects to recording that have gone down in price.
Like the tape to the hard drive.
Tape
Yep.
to the hard drive, digital audio workstations. A full blown audio workstation you can get for under $3,000-4,000 even.
Yep.
But there's other things. I mean, the gear is kind of useless if you can't really hear what's going on, and so build outs are still an important part of this business if you want to actually be able to mix something and have it sound like that outside of your room, and that's a whole other thing. But
That's a whole.
but that's all very expensive to do that kind of build out. Microphones are still expensive. There's certain analog gear that you absolutely have to have. There's no way around it. You need microphones. You need mic pre's.
Yep.
So
And they need to be of sufficiently good quality.
it's not really realistic that recording engineers and studios should be getting paid the same amount of money as they did in 1986. It doesn't really make any sense.
It doesn't make sense that musicians get paid the same as they did in the 70s.
Well, listen, the musicians, it all comes down. So,
Yeah.
if you're going to be recording, unless you're recording corporate stuff, you're dealing with whatever money the musicians and the acts have, and these independent acts have a very difficult time making enough money to fund the recordings. And um, while the whole world is listening to streaming, there's this other world of musicians that have to sell CDs, and they sell them at their shows, because if they don't sell a physical product, they have no way of making the money to make another physical product. So it's
Yep.
kind of like these two tracks that are going on at the same time. I just produced an artist, BJ Liederman, who's probably going to sell a lot of CDs, and he's not even going to put it on streaming, and he shouldn't, because he's known for writing all the theme songs for the NPR
Oh, okay.
for NPR that's been on there for 30 years. His name's been mentioned, so anybody, all the millions of people that listen to NPR are very familiar with BJ Liederman. Well, that's going to translate into CD sales. So for him, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try and put it on streaming and give it free, because the people that already know him are going to be willing to pay for it. So you should sell it. So anyway, I talk all about what's happened in the industry, and then I'm equating that to what's happening in the world, as particularly in our political system. And I don't know if you noticed, but I wrote that book in 2015.
Yeah.
I was doing the major editing, my third, fourth, and fifth draft I did after Trump entered the race, but that book was written before Trump even entered the race, and I'm touching on all sorts of things that have come to pass. One of my characters that keeps popping up in Mixerman's dreams, and that is Senator Coup d'etat.
Yes.
And, I'm not going to say who that is.
No,
but
he's my senator.
probably
It's okay.
someone
Yeah.
very familiar to people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're talking about my senator. And he's not really my senator, but he represents the state that I'm in. So yeah, so just so basically in your world you get hooked up with an intern, for lack of a better word. He's an intern, or at least what used to be interns, but there's a bit of a twist, and mayhem ensues. And did you really write
billionaire? That's the twist.
Yeah, he's a billionaire intern.
Let me tell you, I'd love to have a billionaire intern.
It's
'Cause
funny.
if it's anything like what came out of my head, that's going to be great.
You know the exact formula on how to go make the kid blow up with sufficient capital behind him.
Yeah, exactly.
What I found amazing though was, like, I'm sitting there reading it, and I don't know if it was Ken Lewis or it was somebody who I had no right kind of side-eyeing over it, but a lot of guys who were big name producers, they're educators now. It seems like the only way any of these guys can figure out how to make any money anymore is to teach the next generation how to do it for profit. And
Right.
I have really mixed feelings about that, but listen, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with their time or money. But I remember sitting there and I was reading, this was when you were publishing the weekly adventures on the website, right? And that's mixerman.net. I'll make sure there's a link. You have a whole forum. I should join your forum.
The Womb Forums.
Yeah.
Mixermania. It's Mixermania on Facebook.
Mixermania?
Yeah.
All right,
my
I will
Facebook
make
group.
sure I go like that. But
People, there's so many people on Facebook now that I don't put a lot of time into the forum anymore. It's just
yeah.
plummeted. And this wasn't just my forum. It was never. I never treated it as a real business. It was more of a hobby than anything. I mean,
It's a way of building it's a way of maintaining your community that you've built around yourself. Yeah.
exactly. So, and it was a good promotional tool. But it's not that anymore. It's so I'm spending a bit more time on Facebook on Mixermania, which is one of the Facebook groups, which I curate. So
Very
and then
cool.
there's Mixerman.net. Yeah.
And but this whole thing of like, because I remember my buddy had Diamond Audio here in Austin, and he would get calls, and kids would be like, "Let me intern with you. I will pay you." Like that's how desperate some of these kids get out. They get out of audio school, and they're told, "Get an internship, get an internship, get an internship," which I agree is the best way to learn it, but like to pay a studio for it. And now some guys, I guess they got those calls a couple times, and they said, "Well, I guess I'm a school now." And there's one school here in Austin that I won't name because I don't really want to just sit around and trash talk other people, but that dude is ripping all of those students off, and he should be ashamed of himself. Um, and I want my
Make an
SM57
argument that
back.
any school that teaches recording at all is predatory in nature, regardless of its size or anything else.
I
Because it
know.
would be impossible for them to actually place or for all those kids to get jobs. And
There's just not, yeah, there's not that many jobs out there.
audio is not the only place that this is happening. This is a trade school epidemic of people being told, "Oh, you can be a massage therapist. Oh, you can be this. You can be that." And these, in music in particular, it's saturated. I
Yeah.
mean, you have people like me who have discographies, and in the grand scheme of discographies, mine's pretty medium.
Yeah.
But compared to someone who's just started 2, 3, 4 years ago, who has absolutely no opportunity to have nearly the kind of national known acts on a discography that I do, they're competing with me, and I'm competing with them, which is nuts.
It's really nuts. And but so I understand why some of these guys they go into teaching because it's lucrative. If you can get 6 or 7 students to give you $6,000 every few months, that's a pretty decent living. But I just don't know that I'd be able to sleep with myself at night. But I like what you're doing instead. You've written these books and you're trying to help the next generation in a more sustainable way, in a way that doesn't cost a single student $6,000. So tell me about while we have a little more time, tell me about the Zen and the Art of books. You've written 3 of them now: the Zen and the Art of Recording, Zen and the Art of Mixing, and Zen and the Art of Producing. I think producing was the first one, right?
Mixing was the first one,
Mixing was the first one.
and it's the most popular one.
Is it?
Probably because it's the most elusive part of. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. It's the thing that people have the struggle the most doing.
Yeah.
Like recording, you can get decent at recording pretty quick, and even if you're not decent, it's okay. But
Put a
mix-
microphone in front of the thing. Yeah, I'm with you.
but mixing is very frustrating for people to learn, and so that one does very well. The producing, Zen and the Art of Producing, to be honest, I think is the most valuable of the 3 books, just because you can't find this information anywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that I talk about in mixing, you might be able to find. You're going to be able to find on the net. I mean, there's certain things that that are unique to me and how I present it, my philosophies of mixing and how I think about it. But when it comes to producing, you won't find hardly any of the things that I talk about in that book on the net anywhere, or even in other books, because
Not a lot of books on.
I'm talking about politics, and I'm talking about, you know, uh, the, how to use shortage of time to your advantage by using it as a fulcrum to push the session forward, and how to use too much time as a time to get extra time, as the time to get creative. Because if you're way ahead, then everybody kind of rests on their laurels a little bit, and there's a sigh of relief. And then if you fall behind, then everybody's like, we're falling behind. We don't want to be behind. And you push it forward. So I talk about those things, and I lay out what all the different kinds of producers there are, and things to consider when you're recording, and all of that. And then Zen Recording probably is the most technical of the 3 books. only because I have to talk about microphones and the different kinds of microphones and how they work and why they have certain attributes that you might want to consider and using in certain situations and all that. I don't hear your audio.
Yeah. I was enjoying that view. That
Oh,
that is gorgeous out there.
it's fucking unbelievable here.
I don't blame you for going.
I had a good view in Redondo Beach, but this is I have this incredible view out the front there of all of Asheville.
Oh
It's really
man.
nice.
And
Yeah.
no power plant. Right?
No
Isn't it
power plant. Yeah. Yeah.
I really so yeah, I just kind of I was trying to wrap it up before we had our technical issues anyway. I've taken enough of your time. I really appreciate you doing this and hanging out with me and having this conversation.
No worries.
I consider you a mentor even though like we've only talked a couple of times, but it was from reading the books. It had such a profound impact on me. So thank you for your contribution to the world of audio and music. And do you have any thoughts for the audience?
No, I don't even know who your audience is. How am I going to have thoughts for them? You told me they don't even make music.
Most of them don't. Most of them are just regular people.
All right, well, I'm just a regular person too.
That's right, and that's the thing, like they're regular people. A lot of them aren't even aware that like back in the day you would have you'd have a recording engineer, a first assistant, second assistant, right? Like all of that nuance is lost. They just know I do a lot of this to kind of shed the light on how all of this gets made and how the guys like you who are very well established, how you approach it and how that's different than how like somebody like me who's on very limited resources. When you get to roll into Capitol Records, it's a very different kind of session,
It is a very different kind of session, but you know what? I do this kind of sessions where there's limited resources too. I mean,
right.
Listen, EDM's so hot right now. You think I'm not down there programming, doing remixes and shit? Of course I am, and I love it. It's fucking blast.
Did you figure out how to do the wob bass, the wob wobs?
What's that?
I call them the wob wobs. The wob wobs, when you get the bass going, wob 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 wob.
Oh yeah, I love the whoop whoops.
It's
Definitely.
I've never been able to figure out how to get my DX7 to do it. Like I can kind of do it, but you gotta keep re-triggering the note.
The thing is, when you make music all the time for many years, what starts to amount to decades, and well, more than starts to, it starts to be the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into this to be a factory worker, so you gotta. First of all, things change. You got to go with the changes. Constantly, just figuring out new ways of doing things. And then, second of all, you want something fresh. So, to me, when I start working in a genre that I haven't worked in, or when production changes a little bit, it's refreshing. It's fun. It makes it new. You know what I mean? It keeps it interesting.
And the fresh thing's that's a good point, because like everything we do on the label, I'm really focused primarily on capturing live performance, right? I get people in a room, mic it appropriately, throw a bunch of cameras up, show the audience what it is, and to me that's actually fresh, because now we're in a world where everybody's making EDM on laptops, and they're simulating the sound of like guitars, but they're not playing guitars. And and like I remembered you were a keyboard player because you mentioned it in that first book. And like there's that ad going around for Deadmau5 where he's got some masterclass video, and I saw Hans Zimmer's doing one. I'm like, oh, this is the new gimmick, huh? But he's sitting there going like, I don't play keyboard, so I have to write everything with a mouse. And I'm just going, ouch. That hurts me in my soul.
Yeah, that's pretty time consuming.
Yeah. How much faster would you be if you just learned the keyboard, bro? But what,
what? I'll tell you, when
I like his music, so.
When I play a keyboard part, sometimes like it would just be faster for me to play it in once and then just move the MIDI notes to wherever.
Yep.
But I'll sit there for an hour
And fiddle with the piano roll.
and just keep playing it because I want to play it. And and then I end up moving the MIDI notes anyway. But at least I get it 90% there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just. Listen, I'll tell you, there's the Dead Mouse thing is cool because it does show that you don't really have to know anything to make music. You can just make it,
Right.
and that doesn't mean you'll be good, but you could be. So
Well, and he did the thing I heard you guys kind of talking about it on your radio show, and I'm kind of sad to see that there hasn't been a new episode in a long time. I'd love to
about restarting, but it'd be with different personnel. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, because they were all like, I don't understand how they get that, like all the side chaining, all that came about after I got out of school. I didn't really know that. I wasn't the guy who figured out, oh yeah, I can totally side chain everything but the kick, and then the kick sounds way bigger. And
I'm still not convinced how the hell they're doing some of that, like the pumping.
yeah,
With the whole track pumps,
Yeah.
with the kick drum and stuff. Like sometimes at first I thought it was compression. And
It is.
I couldn't really make it happen with compression the way I wanted. So then I got this LFO tool. I
LFO's
still haven't gotten a whole track to do that yet. I'll figure it out though.
Yeah, let me. I'm happy to say I can do it with compression.
You can?
Yeah, what you do is you create a ghost bass track, create a ghost kick track. So you do a kick track that you don't actually hear. You're just using it for side chain.
Side chain, yeah.
And then you put that on, you set and it's got to be super clean, so it's got to be like digital because it needs to go all the way back down to 0.
Yeah.
And you set your threshold pretty low, and then the pump, the contour of it's all the attack and the release.
Yeah, it's the release. The release
And-
has to be fast enough. It's tempo based.
It's tempo based, and they're just dialing it in with the attack release. The hard part with me is I have one of those FMR RNC or RNLAs, which not the spiffiest piece of gear, but I love it. But it has like a low pass. It has like a high pass filter on its sidechain input. So I've been trying to do it live with my Korg Volcas, but I just can't get that thing to react to it. So I'm going to try.
So analog compressors aren't as good for that.
Yeah, I don't think they would be because there's no look ahead.
I think I tried to do it with my SSLG 384, which is probably too good for it. So I should probably try a plug-in. Yeah.
Try a plug-in and do a sidechain and give that a try, and let me know. If you're still getting stuck and you're not there, I'll take a look at it for you.
Okay.
But you're chuckling at me because you're like, I can figure out my own stuff. Thank you. I know the.
No, man. I'll take input from anyone, anywhere. If listen. If I really had a track that I wanted to do that, I would figure out how to do it. I've messed around with it here and there and decided, I don't want to do it on this track anyway. But I am intrigued by it just on a technical, and at the very least on a technical side. And I know that it can be done multiple ways, but I thought it'd be easier to do than it actually is.
Right. And that's the thing when you, like you said, when you start editing, you can go overboard with the editing in a DAW. But these EDM guys, they don't, because everything's MIDI, they don't really go overboard on editing. They go overboard on routing and all this stuff, because once you start playing with it, you're like, oh, and then if I pile this on and this, and you like me remember a time when a computer couldn't run that many plugins.
Yeah, right.
You get one reverb maybe. So thank you for taking the time, and thank you for writing these really good books. I'm gonna have to go through the Zen and the Art of series. That'll probably be what I do the next time I have a lull. I gotta find them on hardbound though.
They're not. I never did them in hardbound.
You never did a hardbound of them.
Yeah. And the digital versions have videos to them. So like if you want to see all the videos, those are on the Kindle versions. I mean, I understand some people have complained and said, well, why didn't you put them on, why should I buy the book and the digital or I don't know. I can't put videos in a book, and I'm not going to do CDs at this point or DVDs or any of that. So
Right. Though
I put them in the digital versions.
this one's got an audio book, The Billionaire Parent.
Both of them do.
Do they
Daily
both?
Adventures. Daily Adventures has one too. It's on my website.
I'm
You
gonna
can
have
actually
to.
buy the audiobook. Those are really good audiobooks because they're fully produced.
Yeah,
They've
you're not
got
gonna go.
music,
You're not gonna
leitmotif,
screw around with the audiobooks.
sound effects, Foley. I've got
Yeah.
full ensemble casts. I mean, on the Daily Adventures of Mixerman, I have Ken Scott, who recorded the Beatles, Ron St. Germain, who recorded U2 and 9/11, and or I'm sorry, not 9/11, 411, and
311.
I did. I've got Ed Cherney on there. Just these guys all have like tons and tons of gold and platinum albums, and so it's like listening to a movie, really, in a weird way. And so I did it kind of a la Fire Sign Theater, which most of your audience probably won't know. They're actually even before my time to some degree. They were like a '60s comedy troupe that did 1940s style radio programs.
Oh, very cool.
And they were plays.
Okay.
And so anyway, so they're fun listens, and you can hear the first 20 chapters of the Daily Adventures of Mixerman are actually up on YouTube
For free.
If you just type Mixerman in YouTube, you'll find them, no problems. I have a channel.
So I'll make
And they're
sure.
actually probably on
put
my
a card-
website too.
Yeah, I'll put a card on this video so that people can click
All right.
right over.
Awesome.
That's really cool. So thank you for taking the time, and keep in touch, and again, just keep doing what you're doing.
Get off my lawn!
All right, so welcome back, and thank you again to Mixerman. We had a little technical issue there. I tried to edit around it, but those happen when we're dealing with the internet and things. The call disconnected at one point. So let's move on to our next section, our announcements, goals, and giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the first thing I want to do, I want to talk about our announcements. We've got I talked to Millicent Hughes. We set the recording for May.
Okay.
So we'll be working on that album in May.
Is that on the calendar yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the recording dates are penciled in. And I think we're going to do sounds in between before that. That'll probably be the next one we do after I finish. It's We Are Living in the Age of Neo-Feudalism.
Okay.
So We Are Living in the Age of Neo-Feudalism, I'm halfway done.
Okay.
And I just need to write another 30 minutes of music, perform it, record it. I'm making it sound easy. It's really, really hard. It takes me hours to get 15 minutes because
Yeah,
I do them in 4 15-minute chunks.
Yeah, you've been working on this one for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, and I'm doing it to tape, which makes life difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it to this 4-track right here. This is a Fostex 250. One of the first 4-track machines. This might actually be the first of the cassette 4-trackers. Sounds great. It's got a really great sound. It's just full of character. Mm-hmm. The Jazz Destroyers Live, there's no new updates because it's out. So we have download cards. It's available on Bandcamp and CD Baby and iTunes and Amazon. Those, if you buy it through CD Baby, that's where we get the best percentage.
Okay.
Bandcamp is a close second. Best of Freeform Fridays is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So on Saturday we'll release the video where I unbox the cover. I need to take a high quality photo of the cover.
Mm-hmm.
It is mastered. The distribution network is set up. It takes a couple weeks to get download cards once they're done. But yeah, we work. That's about ready to go.
Okay.
MC Overlord's just about done with the album he's working on now, and then so hopefully in the spring, maybe the summer, we'll do the MC Overlord album.
Yeah, I gotta give him time to write new material.
Yep. It's a secret to nobody is coming to iTunes probably pretty soon. It'll come to iTunes, Pandora, Spotify. That's
Spotify?
I just got to put up with it. Nobody knows who I am.
Okay.
It's currently available on Bandcamp for pay what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do want to check it out, there's a link in the description, or at least on getoffmylawnrecords.com. In the store, you can get to it. It's good. I made it on my iPad,
Yes.
which is why it's cheap. But once I put it up, it's going to be a buck a tune because I just have to. Escape from Ignorance. I talked to Steven today, but we didn't get a chance to talk about that. He's still writing, so hopefully season 2 will be coming soon. And Your Name Here. I'm still looking. I still have some bandwidth. I'm waiting on Ruggero. But yeah, so if you know of a band, if you are a band, if you go to getoffmylawnrecords.com, you can submit, you can send me whatever you're doing. Just know that when you submit, you're indemnifying me from any.
Yeah, you've got the wording up there, right?
Yeah, I've got it right here. It's
it's not up on the website.
no, it's not on the website yet. But basically, you're not going to sue me for plagiarism if I happen to play a few notes that sound like yours. I'm a musician. It sinks in 10 years later. It knocks around for 10 years. It comes out the other way. I don't do it intentionally. So yeah, that's what's going on. So we've hit our 15. We crossed our 100 subscribers. We're currently at 109.
Do we have our URL yet?
Not yet. I went to set it up the other day and it was like, the URL thing is down. So hopefully we'll have that next week. We're gonna make that a goal.
Okay.
Another goal I want to do is I want to get us to 117 by next Sunday.
117.
Yeah, one a day.
Okay.
One a day. So what you can do
Are we
is
at 110 right now?
yeah.
Oh.
Well, we're at 109.
109. Okay.
So what you can do to help is if you haven't subscribed, subscribe now. And also, if you have subscribed, help a friend subscribe. Find a friend that you think would enjoy the show and help them subscribe. It helps a lot. We crossed 15,000 watched minutes in the last 28 days. I'm curious to see if we can get...
And there goes our power.
And our audio. That's funny. So, yeah, we're going to see if we can get that going.
Yep.
And I guess I don't need this now.
Yep. This is useless.
Yep. So I want to see if we can get that up to 20. So watch the videos. Turn them on in the background. Just watch the videos. That helps. Helps a lot. And share them. Help other people watch them. And then so that's our goals. And then our giveaway. We did this last week, but nobody followed all the instructions, so I still have the book. We have a piece of religious propaganda I received in the mail.
And we'll post a link to the video talking
I'll
about
put
it last week.
I'll put a card right here where we talk about it. It's really bad, but I will. So you leave a comment, and tell me your favorite. Let's go with your favorite planet. Fictional or real, right? My personal is Hoth. But not only do you get this awful book, but I'm throwing a download card in and a Get Off My Lawn Records sticker. So leave a comment, and then what you have to do is send them either send an email through the website getoffmylawnrecords.com. Mm-hmm. Or you can send a message through the Facebook page with the comment that you're leaving, and then the one I like the best, I will get in touch and we'll get the website, or we'll get your mailing address. I'll spend the $5 to put this in the mail for you.
Yep.
All right. What's next? That would be everybody gets a trophy.
I thought we had shout-outs.
Oh, we do have shout-outs. Everybody gets a trophy comes after shout-outs. That's
Yes.
right. So my shout-outs this week. The first is Cassie Shenham.
Yes.
She had asked me to come out to see her perform with the ACC Big Band, and I met a couple of really interesting kids who they were great, and I'm gonna see and I've invited them to Freeform Fridays. The next session's on January 2nd, and I'm gonna have to watch that thing blink, and it's gonna drive me crazy. So she's gonna sing with us a little bit.
Okay.
We're gonna see how that goes.
Is she going to sing for Freeform Fridays?
Yeah, we'll have her in for a Freeform Friday.
Okay.
But she has a repertoire she likes to do.
Okay.
And then my second shout out is to Christine Lorenzo,
Okay.
who is the best. You're awesome.
What has she done?
She has been spreading the word.
Oh, good for her.
She actually sent me a screenshot to the Jazz Destroyers page of a post that she made to her college group on Facebook.
Nice.
So she's awesome. I have a download card for her I'm sticking in the mail.
Okay.
I just have been slow. I hand numbered the first 100, and she's getting. I've got the list somewhere. I've got a spreadsheet and I've got a little pile.
Okay.
So she gets one, and then my perpetual third shout out is to the Get Off My Lawn Records family,
Yes.
which is the group on Facebook. I moderate it, so if you're being a jerk, let's just say I'm going to moderate it heavier than they moderate the HOA group on Facebook for our homeowners association. But
Yeah.
but just be good to each other. We have a good time, right? I want to see what you're up to. I post exclusive content last week. I posted a little video where I was belching in between the interview, and I thought that was very funny.
You would.
Our friend Matt Butler did not think it was very funny.
Does Matt think much is funny?
Yeah, Matt's got a good sense of humor.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah, he's good people.
Okay.
So those are my shout-outs. Who are your shout-outs?
My shout-outs. First one is to my sister Becca
Yep.
for
Hi.
giving me a heads up that my mother had asked us both for the same thing for Christmas. So, yeah, there's that. Second shout-out is to my dad's cousin Gilbert, who was,
Yeah, Gilbert.
Gilbert was in a car accident
Oh no.
yesterday.
Let's
And-
hold on. Let's take a minute. Pause the video. Let's say a prayer. All right, keep going.
Okay. So, yeah, he last I heard, luckily he did not have to have surgery. But
Pretty nasty car wreck, huh?
it was pretty nasty, and you know, it sounds scarier than it was, but he had to be airlifted to Albuquerque, but that's part of that is because the hospital in Taos isn't all that equipped for anything.
Right, and he's pretty remote out there on that farm.
Yeah.
A week
Other cousin. Other one.
Oh, okay. I met at the family reunion. I met a lot of cousins, a lot of good people.
My dad actually has a couple cousins named Gilbert.
I didn't meet a single person at that family reunion I didn't like.
Yeah.
And normally when I get in a whole group of people, I can find a couple people I don't like. But they were all good, just good people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my phone's going off in the other room. I'll check that out afterwards.
So yeah, last
yes.
I heard, he was doing all right. He didn't have to have surgery, but apparently it was touch and go for a while. So
That's
shout out to Gilbert.
and the whole family. If they get hit with big medical bills, we'll do a GoFundMe. We'll promote it on here. Yeah, and who else?
Last shout out would be to our neighborhood.
Screw you all. No, really. I know you're doing this sarcastically, but
Yes.
my neighborhood decided to gang up on a single member of my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I was the lone voice going, "You guys are turning into a lynch mob." And apparently, because somebody's got a past and paid their debt to society over 20 years ago, that's still not good enough for some people. And I will tell you this, you are not allowed to use that particular information to bully people like that. And every one of them who jumped onto that bandwagon is culpable for the fact that his tire got slashed overnight.
Yep.
So I went over, I paid for the tire. Nobody should have to go through that on Christmas.
Right.
So whoever slashed the tire, screw you. And to all you lynch mob, screw you. And for everybody who watched it happen and watched me be the only one going, "Guys, knock it off. This is a lynch mob." and said nothing, I'm very upset with all of you. For those of you who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, I'm not upset with you. You're all right. Some of you are still jerks, but that's okay. I should apologize to Jenny.
You should. Yes.
As long as she didn't watch the lynch mob form. No, I noticed they took all of it down.
Uh-huh.
They took it all down. They don't want to be responsible for the fact that what they did was breaking the law. But it upsets me greatly, especially when personal friends, close personal friends, people I confide in, they get the internet bullying.
Right, and these are people that they've lived here longer than just about anybody, and all they really want is to make this a good place to live and
to feel safe in their homes.
Yeah, and
right now they don't feel safe in their home. An act of terrorism was committed on my community.
And these, literally all they've wanted since I met them when we moved in was, for this to be a welcoming neighborhood. And we get all these new houses built and all of these people moving in and all these new people that don't know what's going on just decide to
gang up and
speak out about things that they have absolutely no actual knowledge of.
So I'm thoroughly upset. And with rightful cause. Mm-hmm. But my landscaper's fired. Because even though I'm apologizing to Jenny, the name she decided to call me, not acceptable. And I'm not working with somebody married to that. Sorry. I will mow my own damn lawn.
Even though he didn't say a thing?
Don't care. End of story.
Because really, I wouldn't want to be associated with some of the things you've said, either.
Then then go out, then get up there and condone. And say, I don't agree with these things.
Okay.
Want nothing to do with any of it. At this point, the whole neighborhood can just get off my lawn.
Feel better now?
That was cathartic.
Okay.
Let's do everybody gets a trophy.
Okay.
I want to give a trophy to Mixerman first.
Okay.
Because he was really under the weather when he did that. He really went out of his way to make that happen for us.
Was he still feeling bad?
I'll check in.
Okay.
I don't want to go into what was feeling bad, but it's just like
that he was still feeling bad as of the interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I try to leave him alone. He's a busy guy.
Yeah.
Right? He actually works on Hillary Duff records and stuff. He works on stuff.
Stuff. Actual stuff that might make money.
So I try to give him his space. If I ever decide to move to North Carolina, I will totally.
Is that where he's based out of?
Yeah, he's in the home of Moog these days. Moog. Rogue. I've been talking about what's going to come after neo-feudalism.
Uh-huh.
I may do an album called Moog and Vogue.
Moog and Vogue.
And just use nothing but Moog. Except for the recorder, right? Because Moog doesn't make a recorder.
I was going to say, do you have enough Moog to make, or have access to enough Moog to make that happen?
I can make a Moog album happen.
Because, Moog is not cheap.
I will happily make an album with nothing but my sub-fatty.
Yeah, you probably would.
And the other one I've been talking about doing, I want to do one with the Nintendo. I've been learning how to make...
Nintendo noises.
Yeah, I've been learning how to make music with the Nintendo. So I may do a chiptune album eventually.
Okay.
But more importantly, I want to do other music.
Yes.
I don't want to just do my own music. I do this so that I can release other people's. I do my own stuff because I'm a musician and I'm a fish in water. Mm-hmm. But I want to give Eric the Trooper Award for that, for toughing it out. And he wasn't feeling great, but he took the time.
Okay.
And he went to our alma mater.
Yes, he did.
And that warmed my heart. So yes. And then I want to give you the Patience Award because I have been hopping mad all day long over this.
Yes.
Over the previous thing we had just talked about, which
Uh-huh.
I don't need to talk about anymore.
Good to know.
But yeah, I've been hopping mad, ranting and raving like a maniac.
Which leads to your award for the most vitriolic rant we've had on the show so far.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How about standing up for the little guy? Do I get one for that?
Really? You're gonna get pissed about the award I give you?
I'm still hot. I'm hot. I'm really upset about this. They used a piece of information, and when you go look at that piece of information, it specifically says you are not allowed to use this information to harass.
Right.
And then they did that.
Yeah.
It said don't do the thing, and then they did the thing.
Right. They did the thing.
And listen, I actually understand everybody's perspective. Everybody gets weird when they have kids, and they get weirdly protective, and it's an instinctual thing, and I get that all. But you're not allowed to go try to run somebody out of the neighborhood, especially somebody who's been trying so hard to make the place a good place.
And especially when he's not the only one in the neighborhood, and especially when he's the lowest risk one in the neighborhood.
Right. And the people throwing stones are totally living glass houses, as it always goes.
Mm-hmm.
So a final trophy to that particular jackass who shall not be named. And the fact that he is living in a situation he should not be living in his particular instance. I will just say convicted felons are not allowed to live in houses full of guns.
Mm-hmm.
But a trophy to him. Because it's the only trophy he's ever going to get. And a little trophy to Studio Cat for
finally making an appearance. Hey, baby boy.
And the last one I want to give is a trophy to the audience.
Yes.
For hanging out, being supportive.
Come on.
I wish you would buy more records. They are for sale, but you guys are great. The support that we've gotten since starting this, 3 months ago? Mm-hmm. Has just been tremendous, and it really warms my heart. And on Monday, I was doing YouTube stuff, the back end stuff, the boring stuff, and I was talking to Tom, who you would see on previous episodes, and I said to him, I said, I don't really feel like YouTubing today. It's kind of why I've been taking it easy this week. I just really haven't wanted to YouTube. I've been needing to rehearse things and practice things and learn things. But so I told him that, and I continued doing my thing because it needs to be done. It's important to make it so that we can help the audience grow and all that. But then I looked at my statistics, and all of a sudden I was at 9,966 watched minutes. And this would have been Tuesday I looked at it. So on Monday I just kind of powered through, did my work. Tuesday, or maybe it was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday I looked, because I was at the day job, and I looked, and that warmed my heart. I was like, oh, maybe we can make 10,000 watched minutes a goal, right? And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, because I do the math, and if you think about like how many hours 10,000 minutes is, it's a pretty big number right now. Like at our current watch time, it's 245 hours. In the last 28 days, the videos have been watched. Yeah. And I got recognized. It's like it's getting it's weird, but it's fun. And it's really to help the bands on the label. It's the whole point of all this. But yeah, the long and short of it is it's all because of the audience, because of you guys. So if you haven't already, leave a comment, hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe, tell a friend. And on that note,